Welcome, everybody. It's Patrick Durkin and Nico Martens here today for a Cosmic Tower Q&A call, and we're excited that you're here. I ask that you forgive the phone that's hanging on my ear while we're launching. It's just a complication I need to deal with for a minute. So we're just going to get started and get Nico going a little bit early. If anybody has any live questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We do have questions that were sent in before the call, and we'll start with those. So the first of those questions, Nico, is besides ensuring to place the tower in sunlight, which I didn't know that we had shared that. Maybe we'll say it this way. What other instructions are there to maximize the effects of removing negative entity attachments and repelling human-on-human psychic attacks? Kind of best practices about positioning the towers and taking care of the towers. And Jen, while I resolve this, maybe you can read the next question when this one finishes getting answered. Okay.
Sure. Sounds good.
All right, I'm gonna get myself.
Yeah, well, there are some instructions as far as placement on the wellness enterprise in the product, right? Don't place it too close to like any source of distortion, like a refrigerator, right, or like your internet modem, etc. But from what I hear, this was specifically related to quote unquote negative entities, etc. I would say the most important thing is your own consciousness. Right? The cosmic tower is not a mechanical device. It is not a machine, like you put one thing in and you get another thing out, right? It's a being. It's a higher dimensional being. So I'd say what is most powerful is you working with your own being, with your own powerful consciousness, and work with it as a teacher, as a partnership, and merge your own consciousness with it, learn from the cosmic tower, and clearly state your intent. If you just put it down there and never look at it again, yeah, it's gonna, it's gonna do its job, and it's gonna, act according to universal law and etc. But if you really want to get the most out of it, it's all about your own consciousness and the intent and the instructions you give it. It's like you have a computer. It can do all these things. Where should I put my computer in the house so I can get the most benefit? I would say, well, it's the commands you put in it, the softwares you load on it, that are going to determine how much you're going to get out of it. It's the same with the cosmic tower.
Awesome. Nico, I had a question. I wanted to know if you could share a little bit about how it's been having the cosmic tower in Egypt and what that experience has been like for you, or the cosmic tower, the people around you. It's been fascinating to hear a little bit of what I have from you about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Egypt is an interesting place. I mean, it has high energetics, and it tends to bring a lot to the surface. And yeah, and then there's also a lot of distortions like anywhere else in the world. Now, for me, I just completed like a 2-week juice fast with the cosmic tower, and then getting sunlight and juicing. It's amazing. I just started eating again a few hours before the call, and I was like, man, I should have timed that better. But it's actually amazing. I'd never juiced like with a cosmic tower, knowing what it does and put the charge back into your food, just being able and not being impacted by EMF so much, because in Egypt they don't have 5G, right? They have 4G here, so there's not that much interference. And we are in Luxor, in an agricultural area, so it's beautiful. It was a beautiful experience. And 2 weeks into a fast, I noticed my intuition getting like really strong, like playing dominoes with Tara, and just every single time almost knowing what the next domino is going to be, like really tuned in. And one of the beautiful experiences that I had here was one of the elders, and she's the daughter of a famous the guy that started chemtology, Abdel Kimarian. And Scheherazade is the daughter, and she's taking the whole lineage forwards of ancient wisdom keepers, bringing the ancient wisdom from Egypt forward. And I had not said anything about the cosmic tower, and she felt it, and she asked me about it without me saying anything. And she looked at me, and she's like, "You know, this is conscious, right?" I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "You can communicate with it," and she did, and that was a beautiful confirmation for me, because I hadn't said anything about that. I hadn't explained what it was or anything. So
Beautiful. Thanks for that, Nico. Zane, I see you just put your video on, and I know you've purchased a cosmic tower, and I know you feel a connection to your cosmic tower before it arrives. I wonder if you'd unmute yourself for a second and just talk to us about that, because I'm kind of having a similar experience. In a way, I've placed the biggest order for cosmic towers in the world by anybody ever. And so this container is moving toward the wellness enterprise. And I feel all of it. And I couldn't, was it 2 months ago, Nico, that your tower was here? I couldn't necessarily feel the one that was in the room without looking at it. And now I'm feeling this container moving toward me. So I'll say more as the call goes along. But Zane, would you jump in and tell us like a little bit about what you feel in your connection to your tower?
Sure. That's a good question. I noticed a change. I went through a whole process in trying to come up with the resources to purchase my CT75, and so there was a process I was in, a little anxiety in there. You never know, but there was this soul behind it that said, "Get it." It was unquestionable. It kept coming back to me. So once I made the purchase, the following day, I felt a lightness of being, a certain rightness, a lightness and rightness to my decision, and the fact that this being is coming my way. And since then, I've had some synchronistic encounters steering me toward things that'll be good for me. This whole food thing now, just things are coming my way, and that and being led to Justin, and he led me to a device that is healing my feet more because of my challenge there. It's taking it the next step. I find things happening that I just feel that since I made that decision, good things are coming my way. I pay attention to the universe, and so it's like a rightness of being, in a sense, like I'm on schedule in my life, and that I just feel this sense of promise, having felt so like a sense of empowerment, a disempowerment around the planet, like, oh, what can I do to help Mother Earth? And then this comes along, and it's like, wow, if this is what it really does. Anyway, it's a great feeling, and so that's my experience. At first, I thought, is this my imagination? Oh, this feeling will go away after this day, but it has stayed persistent. So I pay attention to that, and so I feel the higher forces are at play here. Yeah, that's my experience.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. I wanted you to share your words for it a little bit, because I'm realizing, because it's weird to walk out on the really thin branches by ourselves, and it's fun to have company. And for me, there was a moment that Nico invited me to say yes to the Cosmic Tower project, and there was some drama that ensued in my life after that, and it was impactful drama. It was really quite a thing. And at the time, I couldn't really understand it. but it's kind of come full circle in the last week. And one of the things that I think has had it come full circle is that the day that the towers were picked up from the manufacturer and taken to the boxing facility, I felt them for the first time. And I was talking with Jen, and Jen was like, wow, I can feel them too. And that was a shock, right? To have that awareness. And so I started noticing that what's happening, really big picture, from the time I said yes to the project to now, which is about 6 or 7 months, is that there's been an enormous nervous system clean out. Really enormous nervous system clean out. And I can see how each of the pieces that were like more dramatic, like the bigger energy pieces, they're coherent in that they're stacked together to assisting me in coming to peace more with conflict and with making requests of people. Like, it's a really powerful thing to be in relationship when you have a need that can run into a conflict, and you can share your feelings and make requests of people that will help you de-escalate and like move through. And that some people are able to respond to those things and some aren't. But now that I'm learning how to make the requests, I end up feeling better about myself over and over again. And so I was just on a road trip that took me close to 1,000 miles north. And right before I left, I had my transmission checked by the guy that's literally at the end of the driveway where I am. I mean, you couldn't get a business any closer to the end of the driveway. And there was nothing that showed up in my transmission, but I got about 75% of the way home and my transmission died. And I was about 4 hours from here. And I really wanted to get home. Like, I didn't want to be in Somersville, West Virginia for 2 to 3 weeks waiting for a transmission. And so I spent the night at a hotel right across the street from a GM dealership. And then I went in the morning and realized it was going to take 2 weeks for them to even maybe address my problem. It's like, wow, that's a long time in that hotel room. And so I got back on the road, and the next 50 miles, I don't remember how many hours they took, but there were at least a dozen or so times that I was on the side of the road. The truck had just gone up to 4,000 RPMs with no forward movement. And I was just stopped. And on the last one, I was like, okay, like, this is really it. Like, I'm stuck. It's time to call AAA. And I decided to try one more time. And I ended up, while I started driving, getting on a phone call with somebody who ended up buying a 220 tower, one of the big towers. And while I was talking to him, I was like really in the space of the tower. And then I hung up the phone with him, and I got on a run that ended up being 170 miles where I was manually shifting the truck, and I only had to come out of fifth gear for like a quarter mile. And so I basically got to stay on this run. And when I came out a quarter mile, it didn't go very well. And there was something that happened like faster than the speed of thought, where I took the transmission and I put it inside the container of towers. It just merged the ideas. And in the second that happened, I was like, oh, I'm going to make it home. I just knew I was going to make it home. And I ended up essentially driving 170 miles with that tiniest bit of interruption. And I just feeling like the container of towers that's coming is just, it's more running my life than I am. Like, there's a new grace running. That transmission needs to go so I can load towers in the back of the truck and drive them around the country. So the perfection of that, and then the nervous system needs to go, because having a level of anxiety while being in conversations with people about towers doesn't work either. And so I'm just feeling really, really super supported by it, and like having towers coming to me is making all the difference in what's coming up in my life. like it's being guided at a level that I haven't experienced before. So I'm excited that I'm noticing it, but I'm more excited when I hear about people like you, Zane, who are having your own experience of a direct connection with it. Because I think that's where we learn as a community. So thank you for sharing, and thank you all for listening as I share. I'm going to remind everybody that we have a live chat, and you're welcome to type questions in the chat, and we have questions that have come in before the call. By virtue of some of the details in this questions, people might know who it's coming from, and that's okay. It's from one of our community members who's really into crystals. And so, Nico, this will be coming back to you. So I'm concerned with the effect of the cosmic towers with crystals and me personally. More specifically, I have 45,000 pounds of rare earth minerals or crystals at my home, and they're in a pole barn that is storage from 1,500 boxes of the rare earth minerals, and the house has a metal roof, and the pole barn has a metal roof, and there's metal all around, and the floor. I guess the floor being really strong isn't the most important detail. How do the cosmic towers interact with metal roofs and metal siding? So what concerns do we have about it being in a particular type of structure?
Yeah, and I'm sorry I have to turn my video off. This bandwidth is low, so I wanted to make sure the audio is okay. Now, what we can't forget with the cosmic tower is we're talking about scalar waves. We're not talking about electromagnetic waves. So electromagnetic waves, most of us know, and like over time, they get less strong, and they really are blocked by like a Faraday cage, for example, right? You could really, with metal or with a construction, block electromagnetic waves. Now, this is not the case with a scalar wave. And just to come back to the earlier conversation about feeling the towers ahead of time and all that, remember that the consciousness that the towers are connected to is outside of space and time. Right? It's far beyond that. We're not talking about a fourth dimensional consciousness here. We're talking way higher. So in a sense, if you are going to have a tower, that has already happened and you're tuning into that, right? It's hard for humans to get out of our linear thinking. So in this case, I don't know, I froze.
He did drop. Okay. Well, these are the exciting things about growing a global business and having an audience around the world, and having Nico be in Egypt, which is where he is. He's going to be there for another little bit here, and for what it's worth, this is a good time to take on another question that I can address a little bit, which is. This week, I'm going to be receiving 5 towers in Asheville, North Carolina area. And on March 1st, I'm going to be departing this area for Texas. And there's a lot of different roads I can take to get there. I can go up through Tennessee or straight west through North Carolina, and I can go down through Georgia and across Alabama. And I'm going to be traveling with at least a couple of towers. And that's going to be kind of a permanent thing, is that I'm going to be traveling with towers. And when Nico gets back to the States, he's going to start traveling with towers too. And when the shipment arrives around March 15th, we're going to start distributing towers from Texas to various places in North America where they're going to. And so, if you want to experience a tower in person, let us know where you are, and we'll cultivate a dialogue about that. The bigger the group in any area that wants to experience it, the more we'll prioritize getting there, and it'll be very organic. But we are going to start being on the road with these things, and from here forward, I intend to have a cosmic tower with me every day, for the rest of my life. Like there's no plans to be without one. So if you can invite me to where you are, or create a situation for us to overlap, then that'd be great. And also, if you have travel plans and you are you're planning to go somewhere, you can let us know that too. And maybe we have a location where you're going that that is going to be one where you can experience the tower. And this is all fitting into part of a bigger dream, which is that, we have the structured water business that we've been in for 10 years. And then we have this Lavagna community that we've been cultivating for the last year plus. And then we have the towers, and the cosmic towers and the Lavagna community go together. And it's about bringing humans into communion with one another and having us be friends in the real world and having us sharing loving energies. And so if you end up with a tower in your home and you're open to Lavagna members visiting with you, let us know. And we'll take people who are looking in your area and we'll introduce them to you. You can have them over for a cup of tea and sit in front of the tower. And that way we can all get to know each other. So somebody's saying, I'd love to experience.
Patrick, can I interrupt you? I have Nico here on WhatsApp, and he can hear, and he could be present. Right, Nico?
Yes, I can. You hear
Okay. You were talking about the scalar waves and the metal.
Yeah, absolutely. So scalar waves, they pass through matter, right? So it's not like it's going to cause some kind of effect on your metal roof, or neither will the metal roof block it. It moves straight through matter, so there's no effect there. That was the short of it.
Awesome. While you were gone, I was talking to people about how I'm going to be moving around with towers, and I shared my travel plans from North Carolina to Texas for the first half of March. Thank you, everybody who has affirmed the audio is working. We got the message, and we're going to continue with this. Somebody's asking me privately whether I'll be posting my travel plans online. I don't think so. I think we'll keep it in live community dialogues, but if you're emailing us and letting us know where you are and what you want to see, we'll just keep prioritizing it. There's always a reason to go somewhere. And the first 18 months of COVID, I drove 50,000 miles back and forth across the country. So I'm getting a new transmission, like, let's go. and Nico's feeling the same way.
Yep.
So Zane just asked a question in the chat. That's great. Zane said, I'm seeking testimonials of the effect of the towers in Europe. Is there a site to visit that may have testimonials in English? Zane, that's a great question. And we've been thinking about that one for weeks. So Nico and I are going to be doing a recording in the next 10 days or so with the person who runs the biggest community of towers in Europe. And we're going to be asking those questions on behalf of our community and then publishing that video. So we're all over that. They're a couple years ahead of us, and they have a lot going on. And we've got somebody who's really generous and has been following our dialogue as a community, and she likes the way we're communing, and she wants to contribute. So we're gonna get that for you. That was a great question. Nico, let me go to the next one for you. How do the cosmic towers, especially the 220, interact with crystals or rare earth minerals that are within 100 feet of the center line of the torus field? Does the cosmic tower change the programming that's in a quartz crystal? And I'll start there.
Okay. So I talked to Harald about this too, and the analogy that Harald gave is, let's say that you have a giant oak tree in your front yard. such an oak tree has an enormous energetic field, and in the house lives somebody who's a homeopathic practitioner. Is the oak tree going to change the programming and all the energetic medicines? No, it's not. Even though it's a very strong field, but it's a natural field. So it is not going to change any of the programming from our experience, even though Harald says we have not specifically tested that. Right now, if you do give it, what I'm talking about is if you do give it the intent and say hey, for any of the minerals that I have, for any of the crystals that I have, if they have any detrimental programming in, please go to work on neutralizing that. Absolutely, the Cosmic Tower will go and work on that. And then we're dealing with a higher dimensional energy, and from my experience, it's never just going to interfere with your free will, right? And with your path. So there again, that conscious communication is really important, and that we set our intent as we're working with the tower. Now, I did talk to Charles about this, and him and I are excited about doing some testing specific for minerals, and we'll be doing that with the Cosmic Tower. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence around it, but we really want to do some testing around that together.
One of our priorities as soon as the towers arrive is going to be to get towers to Charles and to have these experiences. Charles has a decades-long experience of interacting with these type of subtle energies, and we're gonna do as much testing as we can and bring as much through the filters of all the wisdom he's gathered over the decades. The other thing is I think it was today or yesterday, Jen just took payment from another spiritual an evolved being who's been really focused on her spirituality for a couple of decades. And she's going to be getting a device out in the Sedona area, a tower out in the Sedona area. And, as these people are showing up and they're purchasing their towers, we are getting the opportunity to learn from them. And those stories are going to be coming. The other thing that's emerging, guys, is that there's this visualization of the way the towers themselves are kind of picking the path. So it looks like Texas is really the stronghold. Of course, that's where we're taking the inventory to, so it makes sense on some level. But through various orders and commitments that we have 98% of Texas covered already. So Texas is pretty big. And we're already moving north out of Texas up into the middle of the country. And we're already moving west and have touched all the way out to San Francisco. And so as the circles are showing up on the map, it's looking a lot like a tree of life. It's a very beautiful thing to watch. And so I think we'll continue to be gifted information from a lot of different sources. Susan asked in the chat if we'll be bringing any on the road to British Columbia. Susan, I've already been invited to British Columbia from somebody who wants to really help with distribution up there. It's a bigger trip, and it's going to require some investment and some kind of trailer before that trip is the next thing to do. So I would say that far away from Texas is not easy and obvious, but the stronger the energy is in an area, the more people that are asking, the more likely we get there sooner. So thank you for putting your voice on the map and saying British Columbia, it's another place. Nico, I'm coming back to the other part of that question that we were just working on, which is, will there be any difference? Would the reaction be different in terms of the programming with the quartz crystals with a CT35 as compared to the 220s? And then do the crystals actually clear, meaning they become neutral, such as the harmful energies that are spinning counterclockwise start spinning clockwise?
Yeah, so the principle of action between a 35 and a 220 is identical, right? The only real difference is that the 220 is many orders of magnitude more powerful than a 35, so the effect will be bigger, and also it's connected to a higher dimensional. It's even higher in the dimensional planes than what a 35 is connected to. As far as the neutralizing, if these are minerals that you own, definitely, if that's what you want, set the intent with the tower that you want your crystals cleared. The tower is not just going to come into your house and be like, hey, you got all these crystals here, let me just go and start clearing them. Right.
That's beautiful. And
that's a different case, right? It's in a natural environment.
nice. Well, that makes me realize why the cosmic tower is working on my nervous system so much, because I have the desire to know the truth of who I am. And it's hard to know who the truth of who I am is through a bunch of programming that's artificial and causes me to vibrate at a pace other than what I was born to vibrate at. And so it feels really good to be clarifying that. And it also feels really good to be watching this kind of tree of life emerge in the way that the towers are being distributed. So I'm kind of pausing here to share that with you guys so that you can think about what your intention is, whether you own a tower already and one is coming to you, or you're thinking about one, or you're just listening because you're part of the project. And, we can all have intentions for our world around this project. And I invite you to clarify that and know what that is. Nico, how are the torus clockwise fields affected by going through power lines that are in the 13 kilovolt range and higher? Is there any difference between 50 hertz and 60 hertz power lines?
So the function of the cosmic tower's toroidal field maintains throughout those lines at 13 kilovolt range and higher, regardless of the frequency. Again, we're dealing with a scalar wave and not a transversal electromagnetic wave. Now, as far as how detrimental is it, Harald gave the example that if you could stand under such wires as a human being without dying, then a cosmic tower certainly wouldn't have an issue with it, because its field is many times stronger than that of the human body. So I do think that there might be, a small impact as it taking up some of the tower's energy, but it's not gonna collapse the field or have a detrimental to where the cosmic tower is no longer functioning the way it should.
Awesome. Is there a way to test the integrity of the cosmic tower once it arrives at the customer's house, having traveled so far? How do you know it's working inside?
Well, first of all, your own experience with it, right? For those that are energetically sensitive, right? Connect with it, see how you feel, notice your environment, notice animals, notice its effect. I mean, you can feel it in the water. There's so many ways you can do it for yourself, and that's going to depend from human being to human being, how they connect and how sensitive they are. And it's not the same for everybody. Right now, if you really have severe doubts, right, you can always contact us.
Email it to you. Okay.
Check it out. So I had this done with my tower after it came to Egypt, because traveled all over the US. I've been to Mexico with it, and then took it to Cairo, and then to Luxor. So I had it checked out by Harald's people, and it was working great. So that's something we can always do when there is doubt.
That's awesome. You know, when I was learning the knowledge that became the book that I wrote about 5 years ago about structured water, there was no mentor or thing to follow to figure out the differences between structuring water one way and structuring in another. So I developed a tool I called 3 days on, 3 days off. And what that meant was I could take anything I wanted to know about and contrast it with something and do behavior A for 3 days and then behavior B for 3 days. And I could just repeat it until my body showed me, my whole energy system showed me. So one of the things that I've learned as I have these 5 towers that are coming to me in North Carolina this week is that the way you activate a tower really is like an on-off switch. If the tower's lying down, it's off. If it's standing up, it's on. And I am going to take a tower and turn it off and turn it on and turn it off and turn it on and turn it off until turn it on until my energy field can tell whether it's on or off. I'm absolutely going to figure that out because I want to be able to know definitively when I walk in a room, and I know that that's available. Nico, there's a question here in the chat that I'll answer for you. It says, what size tower do you travel with? So Nico's traveling with the 35 centimeter one. But Nico, you might say a word or two about what that's like flying on a plane or traveling in a car or taking it to some of the covert places that you've taken it. Like, how do you move it about?
Yeah, so when I travel with it in my car, I have it standing up, right? To just keep it active. It doesn't matter if it's moving, the toroidal field stays active, so it doesn't have to sit stationary in one place, because I just love the energy of it. So in my car, I just have it standing up to deal with whatever I'm exposed to as I'm traveling or within my car. As far as like airline travel, because it contains water, you cannot take it in your carry-on, so you have to put it in your check bag. And I've never had an issue with it. I was even able to to smuggle it into the pyramids. So that's a whole different story. So I took it in the King's Chamber and in the middle pyramid, because I felt guided to do that. So yeah, no issues with travel. Yeah, the 35 is not too big to where you can easily travel with. Like the 75, you can like travel with it, but it's a lot bigger and it's a lot heavier. So it could be more challenging for air travel. So that's why I really like that 35, because it's powerful and yet it's still easy to pack in like checked luggage.
Awesome. You guys, as a rule of thumb, so I'm like 5'8", so I'm not particularly tall. But if we take the length of my arm, a sleeve for a gentleman's usually, about a 32 inches, and the Cosmic Tower 75 is about 28 inches. So it's like near the length of my arm. And the 35 is about from the elbow up to the fist, about 14 inches. So, just a rough rule of thumb, half an arm or a full arm is the 35 or the 75. So they're both manageable to move around. And, I can't wait to start carrying one around myself. If you guys have more questions to put in the chat, go ahead. I'm getting near the end of the pre-prepared questions. So if you've got something else that you want to ask verbally or you want to ask in the chat, now's a good time to kind of get that together. Let's see what we got here, Nico. So I wonder about placement. I've read all the instructions and I understand the soul of the tower will guide me. And for practical purposes, is it appropriate to have her on a landing, or should she be on the main level where we spend 95% of our time, including sleeping? I just wonder about the toroidal field. I assume extends 360 degrees around, up and down as well. So even if we placed her in the loft, we're good. My problem is there's so many outlets in this house. Okay, so first off, on the different levels, what do you want to share about that, Nico?
Yeah, as the person already indicated, it's a 360-degree field, right? It's a toroidal field. You can look at it as a spherical field in a sense. So there is no issues with that. And yes, you are going to be guided, and that's the right approach. You'll feel where to put it. There's a few. I'm not going to say rules, but recommendations are like with the smaller towers, do not put them directly on the floor. So they like to be higher up, about at heart level, right? And the big towers, they have their own pedestal that they stand on. As far as the outlet, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just find a place where you have some distance from it, maybe like a foot, 2 feet in every direction, so it just has a clear field.
Yeah, it seems like people are concerned about the outlets, like their houses have so many outlets, and that they don't quite know how to get a spot that isn't near an outlet. I kind of had that issue here a little bit when I had yours.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
and those are recommendations, right? It's like to find a nice and quiet spot. But it's not like if you're going to put it next to an outlet, it's not going to work. Right? It's just finding a nice place with minimal interference. But if there's still an outlet nearby, like 2 feet away, don't worry about that. Right?
Sounds good. Maybe when we get with Charles, we can talk about whether there's something we can do with a supplementary type of crystal to put near an outlet that's near the tower. I suspect that we'll come up with a harmonizing solution for that. I see Charles nodding his head as I asked the question. So let us experiment with it when we get the towers to Charles's house, and we'll come up with something around that. Who knows? Maybe it'll be with salt lamps, or maybe a piece of a particular type of crystal, or maybe there'll be a practice that we can do around it. We'll figure it out. Okay.
Patrick.
Yeah.
I see a question that's in the chat that we missed, and it's a common one. And so it's somebody who says that they're having a hard time deciding between a Cosmic Tower 35 and 75. The person's in Utah. So how would either of you or both of you respond to that? Somebody do I do the 35 or the 75?
Nico, you want to go first or second?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Why don't you go first? See how you answer that.
Sure. So this is my great privilege. Like, this is who I get to be in our community, is that you all ask these questions to me, and I get to listen to you. And so the first thing I want to say is, if you're living in a tight condition around money, where on a monthly basis, maybe stuff's going on a credit card or whatever, and it's going to stress you to buy any tower or to buy a bigger tower, don't do it. Don't do the stressful one. Don't do it. And if helping to harmonize the energies that we live in as a species is at the top of your list, or near the top of your list of things that matter to you, then be resourceful. I mean, there's somebody on this call who I know lives on a very small amount of money on an annual basis, and yet came up with a enough money to buy a CT75 that shocked me when the order came in. It's like, well, how can that be happening? And the answer is, for that person, having harmonized energetics is more important than spending money on anything else. Like, what else would we spend money on? And so it's the type of thing that we as a community, those of us who are bringing these towers to this country and that are leading the Lavanya community, what we want the most is for you to know you. What we want most is the activated version of yourself that has you in a place of knowing with every choice that you make all day long. And so as you become that person, we as a company and a community want to really support you. And so one of the things that we realized we would have to create in the last week was the opportunity for upgrades and exchanges, because some people are going to get a 35 and it's not going to take long, and they're going to know they want a 75 or a 220. And so we put in place some structures for that. And that means eventually when people start trading 35s for bigger ones, that will actually have a supply of used devices. And we'll do factory resets on them, and we'll make them available, meaning that we'll get the original blueprint back set by the factory in Germany remotely. And then we will make those available for a modest discount less than the new ones. If you're thinking about waiting for a used one, there's going to be a wait list, and there aren't going to be any from the beginning. So I wouldn't advise doing that. But we're going to be who we are as a company, which is to allow fluidity, to allow you to be who you are. There may even be a life circumstance where somebody gets a tower and for whatever reason, they can't keep it. They're moving, they're going overseas, their finances deteriorate, whatever it is. If that happens to somebody, we'll even facilitate selling those to somebody else. So you don't really have to worry about it. And then you can just listen to your inner knowing. So, for me, I keep hearing about how these digital currencies are coming, and that our currency is worthless anyway. And, there's all that going on. And, I get to think about, well, do I want to have all my money in cosmic towers or in a bank? And the money in the bank doesn't feed me. It doesn't, like, having a container full of towers, it feeds me. It's like, well, they might just be like really beautiful decorative towers, but I could have a whole lot of them, and I could trade them to people who think that those are worthwhile. And that really works for me. So that's me listening to my inner knowing. So, a lot of my money that was in the bank is now in this container of towers, and I feel great about that. So we all just decide for ourselves. And if you're on the other end of the spectrum and money just comes to you easily, and you wouldn't even really notice if you put $16,500 on your credit card this month, or sent that payment out of your bank account today, it would have no difference on your life. Then why not? Why not have the biggest tower and impact a radius of 500 miles from where you live? Like, is the money in the bank doing you any benefit? So let's listen in together to what's really on our hearts and on our souls, and let's take action from there. And then we'll be the company that facilitates you not feeling stuck if you make the wrong decision, and we'll just help you get to where you need to be. We'll always facilitate. We've done it in the structured water business for people. We created a upgrade and trade-in program that was not very well supported or liked by our manufacturers, and we didn't care because it was supportive of our customers. And in this case, it's supportive of the manufacturer too, because the goal is to spread towers, not just to get them out, but to get them out and have them be well placed, right? We want the tower to be loved when it's with you. And so if it's not, what can we do to get it to a place where it would be loved? So that's what we're going to facilitate, and that's who we're going to be in the matter. And we invite you to be in the matter, the person who knows what's on their own heart and on their own soul. Nico, you got anything to add?
Yeah, just from a more technical point of view, the 75, you could consider the highest version of the personal towers. And don't forget that it's 6 times more powerful than the 35. So if you want the most powerful tower for more personal use, versus the 220s that really work on the field and create and regenerate nature and support smaller towers, then definitely go for the 75. And then also we sold many of the 75s. Over half of them are already sold. So if your heart is set on that one, also don't wait too long.
That's a good point, Nico. It's actually up over 60% of the 75s are sold now. And, you know, one of the things that I'll continue to be for all of you is the storyteller of what's happening. And a bunch of people bought 35s and then came back and made a second payment to turn their 35 into a 75. And we just, you know, whatever the difference in price was, we just had it as though they bought the 75 from the beginning. There was no problem with any of that. But I pay attention to the crowd. And I found it interesting, like maybe between like 35 and 40% of the people who bought 35s to begin with upgraded to 75s. And I was surprised by that and by how often it repeated. And so I just find it interesting. And it looks very, very likely that in the first container, we're going to sell out of the 75s, maybe right as they arrive. Like the 75s are going to be out first. And then we're going to have 220s and 35s, and the next container will triple up on the 75s to try to get the right balance. You know, it's a magic act to try and get it just right on the first one. So we're doing our best. Somebody asked also in the chat if there is a Los Angeles or San Diego large tower, and what I would say to that is I guarantee there will be, and there isn't one yet, but I can tell by the ones that have been placed to the north and east around there that the way the others have lined up, there's a spot that is 100% going to be filled by somebody. And whether we get somebody to pay that or we ship one out there and put it somewhere and still own it ourselves, we're going to get one in the Los Angeles, San Diego area of the large towers for sure. And if you're that person who's thinking about the large tower for that area, get in touch with me and we'll figure out how to work it out. We know a tower is going there. It's definitive. The blueprint makes it completely obvious. So if you're thinking about buying a 35 or 75 and you're waiting for confirmation of that, we will get one out there. Cool. Other question? Anybody want to ask a question live? I think we've gotten ourselves through the pre-prepared ones and the chat. So this could be the end of the line, or we'd be happy to have a dialogue.
Nico has something to share.
Yeah, there were some more questions, I think, in Charles's list. One of them was the difference effect when sleeping in a 35 versus a 220 field and how it's experienced from reports by others. So the power and the effect of a 220 is much higher than that of a 35. Now, how it affects the person really ranges from individual to individual. Your overall health, how many energetic blockages a person has, your spiritual development, your energetic sensitivity, toxic load, and all of that. And the question, how is that experienced from reports by others? Most often, what is observed are the effects of the body starting to clear itself of physical, emotional, mental, and energetic toxins. And for those of you that have done cleanses, this can be uncomfortable at times, definitely when it goes too fast. Right, the detoxification, either on a mental, emotional, or physical level, and that's why I want to remind people that the cosmic tower is conscious. It's your ally. It's a partnership. So when you're in that situation, communicate with it and ask it to go slower and be gentler. And I think. In general, I think it would be beneficial for many people to first experience a 35 or a 75 before getting a 220 in their home. But then again, everybody is different, right? My first experience with a cosmic tower was a 250, one of the biggest ones, and I could feel it, but it's not like I went into crazy detox. Or anything.
Awesome. Jordan asked if I've taken a cosmic tower into a facility with an EES system, and if so, please describe my experience in a future Q&A. So I actually, on this road trip that I just went on, I went to a facility that had like the largest build out of EES. It's like the 24 towers, I think they call it. It's like 4 corners of a room built like 6 deep. And I spent 3 days there, and I slept in the room with it. And my experience with it was that it feels like the EES is targeted at an individual body, and that's the level of harmony that it's looking at. So it's like the EES is attempting to help somebody heal their physical body. And I'm really healthy. And so I didn't really notice. I'm debating my words here, like anything or like barely something. I remember barely noticing something, and I'm forgetting already what it was. And it was just like 2 or 3 weeks
I
ago.
remember. It was your throat. It was something in your throat, like old remnants of a cold.
Oh, the bronchial thing. Perfect. Thanks, Jen. So when I was a kid, and I would get sick, it would go through bronchitis. And I got bronchitis all the time. And even in my 20s, like when I got out of my career and whatnot, if I started to break down, chest stuff would come up. And my 3-day experience with the EES system is that, like, toward the end of the experience, when I woke up in the morning each day, there's no pretty way to say this, so forgive me for just saying it in the language of exactly how it is. Like I wake up in the morning and I'd have a big loogie from my chest in the morning, one loogie, and I'd spit it out, and that was it. And what I felt like was the EES was going in and targeting this area of my body that had previously been weak, and it was supporting a little bit of a cleanup there, which is great. Like I think that was really great. Good, Jen. I'm so thankful for your memory. Mine can be so bad at times. Here, Jordan continued. I understood I visited the largest build of the EES system and felt effects right away, similar but stronger than when I brought the key shield into my life. Yeah, so we're all different, and we all have different impacts. And I do like a lot of healing protocols, and I spend a lot of time in nature, and I'm just, I'm really blessed. And I think that's why I can have like minor effects with things. Like, we'll see what happens when I get in the presence of a 220, a Cosmic Tower 220 for the first time. Nico has described that as being a really profound experience that was kind of like, just dumbfounding for a half an hour, just kind of sit there and like stare into it. I don't know what my experience is going to be yet, but I think the EES system is supportive at the level of healing an individual body. And as such, like, I think we want to give props to it. And I don't want to be involved with EES systems and their business model. Like, their model is about selling time on an hourly basis is the way of getting access. And what I want to do is put systems around the world that cause a change in the energetics that we all live in permanently and forever. It gets, if you own one, you pass it down through generations. But anything that's participating in this domain of bringing harmony to the world, that's fantastic. And any model that they have that allows it to spread and have more of us get more of that harmonized energy, that's fantastic too. So it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, I'd like to add something to that, Patrick, if I can.
Of course.
Let's not forget one of the important things with the cosmic tower is, and we don't talk about this as much because of how life has gone on this planet and because of our challenges, mostly with health, etc., we really focus on regenerating and protecting our body and healing, etc. Now, in my opinion, the most important aspect of the cosmic towers is to really assist humans in their spiritual development. I mean, 24/7, you actually have support to where you can tap into your own abilities to heal, and not just on a physical level, but an emotional, mental, spiritual, and all the higher octaves to awaken to your own divinity within. And ultimately, that is what is going to shift this planet. It's not neutralizing 5G, 6G, or whatever that is going to shift the planet. It's us getting in touch with our own innate gifts within. And that is something that I feel, besides a true, high-level spiritual teacher, well, you cannot have that 24/7 in your living room, but the cosmic tower is like that, and that is what I'm the most excited about here, when our consciousness and the consciousness of humanity, because of the cosmic towers, gets lifted to a whole new level.
I'm so thankful you shared that, Nico. It's kind of a razor's edge position for me. And what am I trying to say? I'm really thankful that other technologies like the EES exist. And as I go to relay my experience, I want to be complimentary toward it. Forgive me for talking with my eyes closed. It's been happening more and more as I go within to try and answer things as truthfully as I can. I want to be really complimentary toward it. And I'm thankful that it exists. And there's like a little bit of a heaviness or more like a not fulfilledness in interacting with it, where I don't want to be around electricity, and I don't want to be around I'll say it the other way. I want to be around things that embody or carry as much of what I experience as eternal, God-given energy as possible, as much as I can discern. And so the cosmic tower creates a toroidal field. It's just very simple and clear what that is. What's becoming known is what it is to live inside of one of those and how beneficial it is. I really, really want that. And I want to be all of who I am. I want to know the fullness of who and what I am. And this spiritual part that Nico just presenced, that's the part that seems to bring forth the most of that. And so while I'm super thankful for physical benefits, and I'm thankful that the EES system did whatever it did in my bronchial area to tighten me up, it's not as meaningful as feeling like purchasing a container full of towers is causing a purification through my entire life that's clearing out my nervous system and my relationships, and even causing me to move states. Like, I can't believe I'm going back to Texas, but I'm leaving Asheville and going back to Texas. Like, I love it here in Asheville, and I'm leaving. And that has everything to do with the crystals at Charles's house and the cosmic towers that are coming into Texas. Okay, I got a question direct. So, Nico, how many towers out in the world would manifest energetic positive shift?
Oh, that's a great question. I think, well, I think that shift is already happening, right? And if you look in Europe, I'd say close to 800 big towers already deployed in Europe. Harald moving into Spain now, into Turkey. So hard to put a hard number on it, to be honest with you. But I do know that Harald has, with his core group of people, like they tune into what would it take to open a certain region. For example, for the US, this is why we're bringing in a container, because they intuited and they checked into it that they would need about 30 big towers to have a solid enough footprint for the project to succeed. So the same is going to happen in other parts of the world. I cannot answer the question of how many would it take. What I do know is that, as you mentioned earlier, Patrick, that the towers have a way of deploying themselves. It's quite amazing how these synchronicities take place. So this project is being guided, being directed from a higher dimensional level. And when I was doing the map in Google Earth, I was absolutely blown away with where the towers manifested and in what pattern. I mean, if you know any statistics, it was like nearly impossible that was a random pattern. So what I do know, with every tower being deployed, we're shifting the balance. We're shifting the balance even further, and I think we're well on our way now to towards a very positive future. The way I see it, at least.
That's great. Another way to answer it is the container that's coming to the US has 32 large towers in it. And that was an amount that was necessary to open North America. Like, we needed to bring in a substantial amount of energy. And they seem to be unfolding themselves related to each other. They're not just one over here disconnected and one over here disconnected. They're unfolding. And so it seems to be making a lot of sense. And I feel like when we get these 32 distributed, we're going to have anchored in the shift in North America. I do want to point out that there's a ley line between Buffalo and Long Island. So if you across New York City, that's particularly important. And if anybody knows anybody that lives on that line, proximate, within 200 miles, either direction of that line, we're particularly interested in getting as many towers on that line as possible, and would appreciate the opportunity to talk with anybody who thinks they might be able to be part of a solution up there. We think that's an area of important concentration. But the rest of it seems to be just, Ron, I know you're up there. I know you're on that line. There's actually a lot of small towers have been purchased in that line. And so thank you for those. And we want to keep working on the big ones for that line. It's an important one, right, Ron? And I think you were the first one to buy one there. So you're very much on my mind. And okay, guys, we've got some logistics we're coming up against, so we're going to need to wrap up. So thank you, everybody, for being here. And we're going to continue to have different types of events coming forward on the tower, not just Q&As. Nico and I will do that call with Yvonne, and we'll get a recording to you from that one. We're also looking at doing another recording with Harald and having different types of questions about crystals on that call. So we're looking at configurations of bringing you different information. But, you know, you showing up and being here lifts our spirits and encourages us. And we feel very much in this process with you. Like, it's a community process. It's a project where we all spread harmony together. So thank you for whatever way you're personally involved. If you're hearing my voice right now, thank you. We appreciate you. And yeah, Nico?
One other thing is that also for the people that have purchased the tower, we're also doing a series of calls there to really go more in depth in connecting with the tower and more integration based. So we also have that.
Perfect. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for being here. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the call for today, and keep an eye on your emails, and you know, keep doing all you can to spread this harmony. Invite other people, tell people what we're up to. Listen to your own guidance, and do whatever's right for you. Thank you very much. Oh, Jen, we keep forgetting. Unmute everybody. Unmute. Ask all to unmute. There we go. All right, guys. Time to say goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take requests.
That was awesome. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.